What's going on, everyone? My name's Tenebris Infinite, and welcome back to Generation Zero. Today is an incredibly important day, my dudes. Phoenix Rising, aka the June update, is finally out. So we have our patch notes here that we're going to read through, and honestly, in my opinion, as a day one player, this is possibly the biggest, most important patch and update that we've seen to the game so far. Now, in terms of sheer scale, the update that we're seeing here for June is nowhere close to as big as the April update of 2019, as that update was just a monumental kind of month one patch. But in terms of the importance and relevance of the things being updated and tweaked and rebalanced and added and introduced in this update, I would say that June is definitely knocking it out of the park and adding so many community requested features and so many really important quality of life features that to me it personally feels like the biggest update that we've seen for Generation Zero yet. So with my rambling about how big and important this is out of the way, let's get into the patch notes proper here. Phoenix Rising patch notes. It's summertime, and we're kicking things off with the introduction of our second expansion, Phoenix Rising. Like Alpine Unrest, the update alongside the expansion adds more to the game for everyone to enjoy, whether you decide to grab the expansion or not. There's a lot in this update as we put in new content alongside some improvements and bug fixes, so let's get to what's new. New expansion, Phoenix Rising. Ostertorn has undergone a significant change as Phoenix starts to impose its influence on the land. The South Coast region is now dotted with a variety of machine structures that are in stark contrast to the once more traditional and peaceful landscape. There are also more signs of the battle that took place between the military and the machines in the early days of the uprising. Areas in the farmlands now show the scars of battles that once took place there. Once again, we've added to the story of Generation Zero by introducing more missions, as well as showcasing some new but familiar faces. We think you'll be happy to meet one of the more talkative ones who has some interesting theories. As Phoenix continues to push itself, it's also evolved one of its machines again by upgrading the Harvester to the Apocalypse class. Like the other Apocalypse class machines, the Harvester brings with it some deadly attacks. Be particularly aware of its gas attack. And of course, this expansion also brings with it a bunch of other things for you to enjoy. More apparel items, collectibles, challenge trees, and achievements are included. And as you may have seen, we've also given you a new way to fight back against the machines. Melee weapons. Utilize the Braun Ball Bat and the Sledgehammer to bash your way through the metallic monstrosities that roam the lands. New expansion, Phoenix Rising. Ostertorn has undergone a significant change as Phoenix starts to impose its influence on the land. The South Coast region is now dotted with a variety of machine structures that are in stark contrast to the once more traditional and peaceful landscape. There are also more signs of the battle that took place between the military and the machines in the early days of the uprising. Areas in the farmlands now show the scars of battles that once took place there. Once again, we've added to the story of Generation Zero by introducing more missions, as well as showcasing some new but familiar faces. We think you'll be happy to meet one of the more talkative ones who has some interesting theories. As Phoenix continues to push itself, it's also evolved one of its machines again by upgrading the Harvester to the Apocalypse class. Like the other Apocalypse class machines, the Harvester brings with it some deadly attacks. Be particularly aware of its gas attack. And of course, this expansion also brings with it a bunch of other things for you to enjoy. More apparel items, collectibles, challenge trees, and achievements are included. And as you may have seen, we've also given you a new way to fight back against the machines. Melee weapons. Utilize the Braun Ball Bat and the sledgehammer to bash your way through the metallic monstrosities that roam the lands. So, as a lot of you dudes know, I've been playing Phoenix Rising early for the past 2 weeks now, and so I've got a lot to say on all of this stuff. First off, for the difficulty changes are absolutely magnificent. It brings the game back to being a game that is completely approachable on all skill levels, whether or not you have a really high skill ceiling, or whether or not you're more of a casual gamer. The changes between the difficulty levels, so adventure, skirmish, and guerrilla, are now completely noticeable, and you will be able to tune your experience to what you enjoy again here in Generation Zero. The ability to switch ammo types is awesome. Um, it's a fallback that I never thought that I personally would need in the game, but having the ability to burn all of your ammo and then switch to a different form of ammo just makes certain things a lot more usable in the game. For a good example being the 50 cal, and this really simplifies some of the muddying around that we had to do in our inventory in previous versions. So now you don't need to go into your inventory to switch your ammo on the fly in the middle of combat. And I would love to see more quality of life features like this come to the game in the future, like auto reintroducing kind of like med kits into equipment slots, and flares and fireworks and sticky flares kind of refilling themselves in your hotbar as well once you've run out. The experimental KVM 59 being permanently added to the rival loot pool is awesome. I've managed to get it both times around, but my heart really went out for the dudes that didn't. So now you'll be able to get the KVM 59 and its experimental variant permanently in the game, which is awesome. And then, as well, experimental weapon drop rates being increased is only a good thing in my books. I think that the end game play of Generation Zero is where the game really, really shines. So having people be able to get those experimental weapons and get to that end game play easier is only a good thing in my books. The aim toggle option, I don't know how much this is going to really benefit people, but I've seen people ask for this, so I'm just glad to see the team listening to the community, as they always do in magnificent fashion. The mission points of interest icons have been updated, and I personally really enjoy the change. It's just a minor change, but it's something that kind of will let you know what you're getting into before you get to it, which I think is really, really useful. And also, it makes them much easier to visualize up on the compass. They've updated how other team members are shown on the map for colorblind users. I myself am not colorblind, but if somebody in the comments are colorblind and could maybe sound off on this change, whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, I would love to hear that. And then for the stamina bar, this is a thing that's taken me a little while to adapt to. No more stamina jumping makes Tenebris sad. But on the other hand, I think that the new stamina bar has tons of room to expand in the future. Now, our final note of the day are known issues, where they're going to be highlighting a few issues that are pain points so that we as the community know that they are investigating them. There are definitely more than are listed here, but they're definitely looking into all of the known issues as well. So, in rare cases, all machines may not spawn in the first main mission where the sun sets in Phoenix Rising. As a workaround, all you need to do is quit to menu and then jump back into the game, and those machines should spawn. And apparently, that's going to be an approach you can take in the future with machine spawn missions, kind of similar to the one mission in Alpine Unrest that got fixed in today's patch. So now, if you ever have a problem with machine spawns for a particular mission, try quitting to menu and then popping back into the game, and hopefully those enemies should respawn. Next up, in rare cases, if a host travels extremely far away from the truck and then travels back, the truck will not respawn for the host. So a workaround is again to quit to menu and then jump back into the game. In rare cases, a host may not see some machines that the client players do. Then also, the next known issue is if players kill machines on top of places where the truck is meant to spawn, the truck will be blocked from spawning. So a workaround is to have all players fast travel away from the location together, or just to recreate your game session as with the previous ones. So then next up, the num and the number, both of the number dash and the number star keys have had issues with being rebound on German keyboards. So hopefully that will be fixed for the German players in the future. In the Scout Challenge tree, Tier 4 of Off the Grid will sometimes count the number of harvesters incorrectly, completing the challenge early. Then next up, sometimes a player's weapon will hang in the air after fast traveling away. Then next up, destroying the sight organs of a tank does not impair its sight ability. So it seems like in the future, damaging visual components will actually impair the vision of a machine, which I think will be really awesome to see and will create some very fresh new strats that we could take against the machines. Next up, the reinforced truck can be inadvertently pushed off course by players or machines, but it will reorient itself. So if that happens to you, just give the truck a little bit of time. And then if not, I'm sure that just quitting the menu and then restarting your session will fix the truck as well. Now, next up, missions that require you to kill X amount of machines can be impacted by the number of players in the game, sometimes making the requirement go quicker than normal. Next up, sporadically melee weapons will not play their follow-up swing animation when repeatedly pressing attack. I noticed this just a few times in my own playing, so hopefully that will get fixed up soon enough. Um, Next up, assigning Q to move left doesn't work when aiming down sights or using binoculars. Then next up, some players are unable to complete the Hellmouth, and for the sick and injured due to machines not being correctly counted when destroyed. Next up, some players are unable to complete Science of Deduction if they trigger the cave-in sequence before actually completing the mission. Next up, some players may be unable to complete the Minkin Bunker mission even after they are able to gain access while having only 2 out of 3 keys. Potential workaround is to restart your game session. And then finally, the Fashionista and It's the Final Countdown achievements do not always properly get awarded. All right, so now for the bug fixes. This is an absolutely mammoth list, so get your popcorn ready, my dudes. It's gonna be a hot minute of us going through this. But there are some awesome fixes here that I really think a lot of you dudes will be happy to see fixed here. So, first off, for the UI, community report, where they fixed an issue where sometimes after unequipping and re-equipping weapons after loading the game after the last patch that HUD slots would disappear. Then they fixed an issue where some locations did not register on the in-game map when discovered. They fixed an issue where your primary weapon would disappear from your HUD if you equipped and unequipped lots of attachments, then unequipped and re-equipped the primary weapon. They fixed an issue where a menu screen would be duplicated on top of another menu screen if you joined a multiplayer session while in that previous screen. Then they fixed an issue where icons would not be easily clickable if they were very near or stacked on each other in the map screen. And I've definitely noticed this fix in my own gameplay. The map is much easier to utilize now. They fixed an issue where the skill stamina amount was incorrectly reducing your stamina regeneration rate. Then they fixed an issue with trying to spawn at a safe house if other players are in the area due to the cursor selecting them instead of the drop down options. So basically, if there's a lot of players near a safe house, you can select the safe house easily. Again, kind of going back to that map tweak that they had earlier. They fixed an issue where the vision mode selection while scoped would overlap with the equipment slots. Then they fixed an issue where bunker missions would automatically override your current tracked mission. Then they fixed an issue where sometimes the revive and abandon options would not appear when a player entered a downed state. Then they fixed an issue where, on rare occasions, a player could get stuck into the revive state if they tried to open the inventory right at the moment of death. They fixed an issue where the screen would not entirely go black when falling into water when using a screen resolution other than 16 by 9. They fixed an issue where the damage over time icon would overlap with the stance icon. They fixed an issue where the icon shown when looting a crate would be different than what is shown in the storage box. They fixed an issue where sounds were not playing when in the collectibles menu. They fixed an issue where the and symbol for all languages, the number symbol in simplified Chinese and Japanese, and the greater than symbol in French were not correctly being rebound. And then they've also fixed a few issues of missing text strings for locations. For missions and machines, they fixed an issue with the Break of Dawn mission where sometimes it would take a while for the ammo box to spawn. They fixed an issue with the Break of Dawn where sometimes enemies would not spawn with the correct point of interest icon over their head. They fixed an issue with the Break of Dawn where the mission icon would stay above the Itovik safe house even after everything was completed. They fixed an issue with Nothing But the Snow where sometimes the hunters wouldn't spawn, and this has been a big issue with Alpine Unrest that I am super happy to see fixed in this update. Then they fixed an issue with hogging supplies and arms race using the wrong mission icon type. Now, for the machines community report, they fixed an issue where machine corpses were floating away or levitating, and I am happy to say that this seems to be completely gone. But if you do ever notice this, always report it on the forums to the devs so that way they could be aware that the issue maybe hasn't fully been fixed in case if you do run into it in the future. They fixed an issue where the experimental KVM 59's electricity would knock a machine out of its EMP state. Now, I've actually noticed this a few times, so it's great to see that get fixed. I think that there's still a lot to be fixed with EMP states of machines, but that's for future updates to hopefully address. They fixed an issue where sometimes rivals would not spawn even when the proper conditions were met. They fixed an issue where sometimes a machine that was destroyed by a Granatyavar would have its debris turn pure black before despawning. They fixed an issue where sometimes a tank would get stuck alternating between two animation states and would never fire. They fixed an issue where sometimes the tank would not engage with players who were attacking it from extreme distances. They fixed an issue where the tank's concussion attack range didn't match the visual effects. They've fixed an issue where the tank's missile attack would fire but not land if the player was too far away. So now mortar attacks and missile attacks from tanks will render at a much larger distance. They fixed an issue where sometimes the tank would not play hit reaction visual effects. They fixed an issue where sometimes a harvester could not call in reinforcements. And then finally, they fixed an issue where the harvester's launcher visual effects were not synchronized with weapon firing. Now, for the world, they fixed an issue where heavy fog was present in part of the South Coast region. For you dudes getting your hands on FNIX Rising, you'll find out why that heavy fog was there in one of the later missions. For a community report, they fixed an issue with the intense light inside of Torsberga Fort, which is great to see. So many people were having problems with that with the Torsberga Fort missions, so awesome to see that fixed. They fixed several issues where an item or loot crate could not be looted due to its placement in the world. They fixed an issue where Elsa was spawning in the wrong place. She was taking a trip around the Beertonet, so not no more. They fixed an issue where a hole in the world allowed players to go underneath the Minkin bunker. They fixed an issue with floating lanterns in the archipelago region. They fixed an issue where sometimes loot crates would spawn on top of one another. So I think that that fix for loot crates will only work in kind of a future tense. So if you have double loot boxes in an area previously that's likely to maintain. But I have yet to fully test that. But I think that that's just for uh, future rendered worlds when you're starting fresh. But then also they fixed an issue with the storage box interaction icon where it was constantly showing up from a long distance at Divik Safe House. They fixed an issue with the fire damage area being too large near the burning wreckage in the South Coast region. They fixed an issue where a window in Boobrook could be broken but not shot through. They fixed an issue with stamina recharge not being applied when the player is moving. They fixed an issue with the Björk car where the wrong hood was used. They fixed various collision issues, LOD issues, floating object issues, and world texture issues as well. Now, for some general fixes, the first one being a community report. They fixed an issue where sprints sometimes would stop working properly, which I think is great. That bug was a really frustrating bug to encounter, and it always seemed to happen at the worst times. So hopefully that's been knuckled out. And this next one is really, really interesting. So they fixed an issue where players were incorrectly able to loot chaff rounds for the Granat Yavar. And so basically, if you're a console player, you still have an opportunity to do this, but I believe on PC it is no longer. But if you take an ammo box to a Granat Yavar that has no ammo inside of it, you'll wind up getting chaff rounds for it. I always thought the chaff rounds were a really interesting idea for the Granat Yavar. Basically, it would be like a rocket powered firework that would also have some damage potential to it. Maybe just like Prone, we'll see chaff rounds get reintroduced into the game at a later state when they work a little bit more effectively, because currently they're just like a weak HEDP round. But yeah, so Granat Yavar chaff rounds are no longer in the game. So then also they fixed an issue where sometimes players with older save files would log in and instantly be encumbered. They fixed an issue with the crazy makeup face paint that would sometimes flicker for other players in a multiplayer session. They fixed an issue where the eye patch pirate apparel icon or item would blink along with the player. Uh, they fixed some issues with silenced weapons not using the proper sound variation depending on how close another player was to the weapon. So that's more of a multiplayer fix. They fixed an issue where the electricity visual effects on the experimental KVM 59 were incorrectly attached to the weapon barrel. They fixed an issue where sometimes deployable tick pods would not deploy a tick. And then finally, they fixed an issue where friendly ticks would often explode too far away from an enemy to effectively do any damage. So there you dudes go, an absolutely mammoth-sized update with tons and tons of bug fixes and some introductions of new features that the community has massively requested. I want to know, are you picking up FNIX Rising for yourself? Are you happy about these updates? For the console players out there that are looking to get their hands on FNIX Rising, the information for that is coming out very soon. There's been no word on it, no official word on a release date so far, but you can trust me that the moment that it does come out, I'm going to be talking about it right away for you dudes and keeping you all in the loop. So hopefully you dudes have enjoyed this. Yet another banger of an update from the GZ team. This one was delayed by a couple months, but I believe personally that the delay was for the best, as this is easily one of the most stable updates that I've personally seen in Generation Zero so far. So hopefully you dudes are hyped for the future of Generation Zero. As always, we are moving forwards at a breakneck pace. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all managed to eat some good popcorn in the midst of this. But yeah, you all have been awesome. I've been Tenebris, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Until then, peace.